Welcome back. Before we begin, YouTube tells me that over 85% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. If you enjoy content like this, hit that subscribe button. It's free and it helps the channel grow.
March 29, 1857, a young Indian soldier, a sepoy named Mangal Pandey, fired his rifle at a British officer's horse and then attacked the officer with a sword. That one act of defiance lit a fuse that would set all of India ablaze, kicking off a brutal, bloody conflict that would eventually be called the nation's first war of independence. This is the story of the 1857 uprising, a rebellion that nearly broke the British Empire and forever altered the path of Indian history. You might hear it called the Sepoy Mutiny, the Great Rebellion, or India's first war of independence. Each name tells you a little something different about how people saw this complex, pivotal moment. Now, by the mid-1850s, India was ruled by the British Crown. But you'd be wrong. It was run by a massive private corporation with its army, the British East India Company. For 100 years, the company had been tightening its grip through wars and shady treaties, and a deep resentment was simmering just below the surface. Politically, a British policy called the Doctrine of Lapse was causing chaos. It let the company annex Indian states like Jhansi and Satara if a ruler died without a male heir. This kicked out traditional ruling families and infuriated their people. Economically, crushing land taxes were bankrupting farmers, while local craftspeople were being put out of business by a flood of cheap British goods. And then there was the social and religious pressure. Many Indians genuinely feared the British were out to destroy their culture and faith. Christian missionaries were openly challenging Hindu and Muslim beliefs, and new British reforms were seen as a direct attack on age-old traditions. The whole situation was a powder keg waiting for a spark. And that spark came from a surprising place, a new piece of military gear. It was the pattern 1853 Enfield rifle. To load it, the sepoys, the Indian soldiers fighting for the company, had to bite open a paper cartridge. Suddenly, a rumor started spreading like wildfire. The grease on these cartridges was made from pig and cow fat. For Muslims, pigs are forbidden. For Hindus, cows are sacred. To use the cartridges would be a profound religious violation for soldiers on both sides. In March 1857, at the Barrackpore garrison, Mangal Pandey of the 34th Bengal Native Infantry decided he'd had enough. He openly rebelled, attacking his British officers and shouting to his fellow sepoys, "Come out, the Europeans are here." His mutiny was put down quickly, and he was executed on April 8th. But his act of defiance became a legendary call to arms, setting the stage for everything that was about to happen. On May 10, 1857, in the city of Meerut, sepoys who had refused to use the new cartridges were publicly shamed and thrown in jail. That was the last straw. That very night, their furious comrades rose. They stormed the prison, freed the prisoners, and turned their guns on their British commanders. The rebellion had officially begun. Knowing they needed a unifying symbol, the rebels marched to the ancient city of Delhi. There, they found the elderly and mostly powerless Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, and declared him the leader of the uprising. This was a masterstroke. It gave the rebellion a figurehead and turned what could have been a scattered mutiny into a full-blown nationwide revolt. From Delhi, the uprising spread like fire across northern and central India. Key hotspots of the rebellion popped up in cities like Kanpur, Lucknow, and Jhansi. In Kanpur, the fight was led by Nana Sahib, the adopted son of a deposed Maratha king who'd been stripped of his title by the British. In Lucknow, Begum Hazrat Mahal, the wife of the exiled ruler of Awadh, took command of the rebel forces. And in Jhansi, the incredible Rani Lakshmibai became one of the rebellion's greatest heroes. The British had refused to recognize her adopted son as the rightful heir to the throne. So, she raised her army and led her troops into battle with unbelievable courage, cementing her place as a timeless symbol of Indian resistance. These leaders, even though they weren't always coordinated, brought together all sorts of different people under one clear goal: to kick out the foreign rulers. The British were caught completely off guard, but their response was swift and overwhelming. The fighting was savage, with incredible brutality on both sides. Rebels were behind massacres of British officers and their families. But the British retaliation was on a scale that was simply staggering. They recaptured Delhi in September 1857, and over the next year, they ruthlessly crushed the rebellion city by city. By mid-1858, the main revolt was over, though pockets of fighting continued for another year. So, the rebellion failed to win independence. But in failing, it changed India forever. The British government was so shaken by the uprising that it dissolved the East India Company completely. In 1858, India was placed under the direct rule of the British Crown, starting the era we now know as the British Raj. So why is it remembered as India's first war of independence? Because for the very first time, people from a huge part of the country from different religions, different classes, different kingdoms rose together in an armed struggle against colonial rule. It was the first time they were unified in that way. While it didn't bring freedom overnight, it shattered the idea that the British were invincible and laid the foundation for all the nationalist movements to come. The memory of 1857 and its heroes would inspire freedom fighters for the next 90 years. The 1857 uprising was a brutal, bloody, and defining chapter in India's story. It started with a single soldier's act of defiance and grew into a war that consumed a nation. Even though it was crushed, the rebellion truly marked the beginning of the end for British rule. The fire that was lit by Mangal Pandey, Rani Lakshmibai, and so many others might have been put out, but its embers never stopped glowing. Decades later, they would roar back to life in the freedom movement that finally won India its independence in 1947. If you found this story fascinating, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world. And let me know in the comments what piece of history should we explore next.
Still watching? Awesome. If you're getting value so far, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. Let's bring that 13% up to 100%.
हम सबका भारत ये प्यारा अपना